Welcome into the Gridiron Now studios. I'm Amanda Borges here with Frangie. It's here, Frank. Let's talk Florida, Georgia. The battle goes down this weekend. Frank, you lived in Jacksonville forever, so what does this game mean for you?
Well, I think it means everything for our city. I really do. Jacksonville has embraced this game like nothing I've ever seen. The Jaguars are the biggest part of Jacksonville sports culture, and they should be. The Players' Championship, which comes to this city in Ponte Vedra every year, is a big, big deal, and the city kind of rallies around it. But nothing like Florida, Georgia. It's our Mardi Gras. The city kind of shuts down on Thursday. There's RV city and there's parties everywhere, and people love this. And the economic impact is gigantic for Florida. It truly is. But almost more than the tens of millions of dollars the city makes, Amanda, it's about the self-esteem of this city. This is something the city owns and believes in and never wants to lose. So it's a big deal for the two schools. And the two schools I don't think will ever move the game from here. There's people in North Georgia that wanted Georgia to move it, North Georgia Bulldog fans, but those South Georgia Bulldog fans in St. Simons and Jekyll, in Brunswick, they don't want that thing moved. This is their one game a year. They feel like their North Georgia brethren have plenty of games. They don't. It's a big deal for Jacksonville, and it's a big deal for South Georgia Bulldogs and all the Gators. Hope the game stays here forever. It's a really neat week in Jacksonville, no question about it.
How would you say expectations have changed now compared to what they were at the beginning of the season?
Boy, they flopped completely, haven't they? I mean, at the beginning of the season, most people thought Georgia was going to win the East. In fact, they were an overwhelming favorite at the media days. People thought Florida would be lucky to win 7 or 8 games, and that would be a great season. Everything changed. Florida is in the driver's seat in the East. Nobody saw that coming. Georgia's still in it. Georgia wins this game. They are well positioned to still win the East. If Tennessee had beaten Alabama, that would have changed a lot because then Georgia could have won and we'd have had maybe a 3-way tie. But with Tennessee out of it, it's down to Florida and Georgia. I know Kentucky's still in it, but I think they're going to get beat a few times. I think Georgia and Florida will play for the East title here, but it's changed completely. Florida's in the driver's seat. Georgia trying to get back in it. Nobody saw that coming, so I think the expectations, here's how different they are. I think Florida would now be greatly disappointed if they didn't win the East, and Georgia would be mildly surprised if they did. That's how much it's changed.
Let's start with the Dogs. What does Georgia have to do to win this game?
Boy, I tell you, without Nick Chubb, everything changes for Georgia. I think 2 or 3 things. Number one, they've got to get Sony Michel going. Grayson Lambert against that super fast Florida defense can't win the game by himself. Can't win the game. They're going to have to run the ball. I see screens. I see some wide receiver screens. I see some quick game out of Grayson Lambert. If he tries to drop back against that super fast Florida defense, he's going to be in trouble. I love Georgia's receivers, but I don't know that they're better than Florida's defensive backs. So Georgia's going to have to run the football. I think that's first and foremost. And I think they're going to have to harass Treon Harris. Florida's not a great rushing team. So you can say take away the Florida run, but they've done a nice job down there at finding wheel routes and gimmicks to combat the fact that they don't run the ball particularly well. So I think you harass Treon Harris if you're Georgia, but you got to get Sony Michel going. I think that's critical.
Well, let's look at the other side. What does Florida need to do to get the win?
I think they need to send the house on Grayson Lambert. I think you're going to see blitzes from everywhere, cornerback blitzes, what Jalen Tabor does very well. I think you're going to see Brian Poole out of that nickel blitz. I think they're going to send the house against Lambert and really try and fluster him and try and get him going. I think you're going to see more running from Treon Harris, whether it's designed runs. Now, that's not something Jim McElwain loves in his offense, but I think you're going to see moving pocket like they did against LSU, but I think you're going to see more quarterback draws, more read plays. They didn't run him a lot against LSU, at least not designed runs. So I think send the house against Grayson Lambert, and I think more designed runs for Treon Harris to loosen up that Georgia defense, which is very good.
Frank, who needs this win the most?
Well, that's a great question, Amanda. Who does? Florida is sort of playing with house money, right? Nobody thought they would be in this thing. All of a sudden, they're trying to get to Atlanta, or they're the odds-on pick to get to Atlanta when nobody thought that. Georgia, everybody expected that they would get there. I think Georgia, to your question, needs the win most. Mark Richt needs it, not to keep his job. No one's firing Mark Richt, but to improve the self-esteem of Georgia fans and, frankly, to make Georgia fans feel better about his ability to win an SEC championship. It's been 10 years now. So I think Mark Richt and the Georgia program probably needs it more. Florida's ahead of schedule. But here's the thing. Everybody needs it more because it's the Florida-Georgia game. That's why the game is so important. It means so much to both fan bases. You only do it once a year. So I think the answer to the question is Georgia because of the preseason expectations and a little bit of the expectations of Mark Richt. But it's Florida-Georgia, so they all need it. That's why they play it.
All right, well, it's time for your prediction, Frank. Who's going to win and why?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a terrific game. I really do. This is not an easy pick. Despite the fact that Florida's had a better season than expected and Georgia's had some disappointing moments, this one's not easy. I think Florida will win because without Nick Chubb, I don't think Georgia's going to be able to do anything with that Florida defense. They could not score a touchdown against Missouri's defense, which is good, but it isn't Florida's defense. I think because Florida will really suffocate them, they're going to need some big plays. I think Georgia's going to have a tough time getting beyond 13 or 14 points. I don't think Florida's going up and down on the Georgia defense either, but I like Florida in a low-scoring game, 21-14, 21-13, that kind of game. I think the Gators win in Jacksonville.
We'll see. We'll see what happens. That's a wrap. For more on the SEC, visit gridironnow.com. We'll see you next time.